I've spent the last year putting the pieces of my life back together after I lost everything in my six-figure marketing business. Yeah, I loved that agency. And now I'm taking my decade plus of traditional marketing experience, combining it with the latest online marketing techniques, and starting again from scratch. The question is, how will I do it? With the new challenges like cash flow, debt, and no team. This podcast is here to give you the answer, so join me and follow along as I apply and share marketing strategies to grow my online business using only the simplest, most uncomplicated methods. My name is Samantha Gooden, and welcome to Marketing Launch Radio. Okay, welcome. Welcome to Marketing Launch Radio. I am here with Christine Light. Christine Light is, you're just as light as you emanate light, you exude light. Being around you is an illuminating experience, and I want all of my listeners to hear that and to know that. Christine and I met, Christine's probably over a year ago now, or about a year ago, when we very first met, and we had a great bonding experience at that time. We had no idea how things would blossom, and now we are doing wonderful kind of partnerships and JV stuff. But I introduce you to the Marketing Launch Radio listeners as a woman who has taken a powerful journey into herself to come out with her message. Thank you so much for doing that, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Samantha. I'm so happy to be here with you. And that was a beautiful introduction. I'm blushing.
It's all true. It's all true. It's just all true, Christine. You have, so you're a coach, right? And you have created this whole kind of rewilding movement, which helps women reconnect with themselves. But it wasn't always that way for you. Where did you start, and how did you even get into the coaching space?
It's a great question. Thank you for asking that. It's so funny because the way that I feel I started is as a young child, saying that the meaning of life was love. It was like something that I said from the time I could remember speaking or even thinking. It was like I would want to curl up on people's laps and listen to their hearts. And so my whole life long, I had this message for myself and for others that there was always something more. There was always something greater and bigger that was inside me and inside all of those around me. And for me, it was this wild fascination with trying to figure out what that was. So I went through theater. I grew up doing theater, and then I went and I taught for a couple years, and then I landed at a corporate job and when I was in Cleveland. And there I thought to myself, like, wow, by all accounts, I've made it. Like, I am making a really fat paycheck right now. I am managing 30 people. I have all the upward mobility one could ask for. I could be in this company and in this kind of a job for the rest of my life and take beautiful, lavish vacations and be great. But I still had that voice inside saying, wait, there's more, more.
Yeah.
And it was like my heart swelling out. So essentially the journey from there to where I am now coaching is that I followed this little voice inside of me, took a trip to Ireland a few years back. And that was the beginning of that stage, or that next part of the journey for me, which eventually prompted me to leave the corporate job. That there is a magic that kind of sparked in me. And once the magic sparks, it's really, really, really difficult to go back. So that was the beginnings of the journey. I could share a lot more detail on it if you want.
Well, I want to talk about the magic sparking because inside, on this show, I talk to copywriters, storytellers, marketers, online marketers, business model developers, but no one has ever really spoken about this spark. It sounds to me like maybe a point of epiphany. I suppose the closest thing to this would be storytelling, where your personal life journey came to a juncture, and that's where the spark happened.
That is exactly right. The way you said that just gave me chills because it took me right back to that time. But so it was actually when I went to Ireland. Here's the thing about travel. travel does not have to change us, but travel often does if
Mm-hmm.
we allow it to. And the reason that I've kind of created in my mind for it is that we pull ourselves out of our habitual existence for a bit. We might even brush our teeth differently than we do in our typical life, but it actually leads us to think about the world around us a little differently. So I went to Ireland. It was my first big trip since I was in Costa Rica when I was 15 years old. So this was huge for me. And I went with a few friends. And what I ended up doing was leaving my traveling companions to go back south to a town called Killarney, which is in the west of Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the beginning of it for me. And I didn't realize until recently when I was trying to write down this story for myself that I think the spark actually happened that very moment. The very moment I decided to listen to my heart and say, I know that it sounds wild to leave my 3 traveling companions who were in Galway City. I was there with them in Galway, which is like 3 hours north. I felt this pull to go back south to Killarney, and I followed that pull. That was the beginning. That was the spark.
Wow.
Because once I followed that intuitive pull to go back south to Killarney, all I had to do from that point forward was follow each next pull. I had like 3 or 4 days I could be in this place, this magical place where there were fairies speaking to me from the trees and from the water, and I could do whatever I wanted. So I just let my heart lead me. And the night before I left, I found myself, again, following just my intuitive impulse. I had planned to do something different that night for dinner, but following the intuitive pull, I went to this little Thai restaurant I had already been to twice. And I got the same meal that I had gotten the 2 times before. But the difference was that this time there is this little mountain man named JJ who was sitting behind me drinking his tea and reading his newspaper. And I ended up being introduced to him by my tour guide who had dropped me off in Galway City, again, 3 hours north, like 4 days ago, who walked in the door of this restaurant and said, Christine, I'd like you to meet my friend JJ. And I'm like, oh, there's this little man who I just had decided to sit next to. We ended up talking for an hour. He's a healer. He told me that I had this like white light in me. And I later came to realize that we all do. But if I hadn't had that first spark, that decision to follow my heart and go back down south, that whole intuitive journey would maybe not have happened in that time. I have to think would have happened at some time. But that is the story of my spark in a nutshell.
I love it. I love it. And it was you listening to this voice. It was you listening to this voice and then you taking the decision. So many of us do hear, but we don't act. Right? In Caribbean parlance, and Jamaicans would say, spirit tick or my spirit tell me, right? Which is just, there's something that I can't see, something outside of me that's telling me what I should do. It's giving me an intuitive pull, or it's giving me a premonition of something, but most times we don't listen to it. You listened, and that's what started the shift in your life. Then what happened, Christine? Because you were in the corporate space, how did you get into coaching?
So I got back, and here's the thing that I knew. I had this awareness of the fact that something huge was happening in me. Some big like undercurrent was starting to kind of undulate through, and I was riding on this wave that I had never felt before. So I got back and I said to myself, okay, what are we going to do with this? Because we can't just let this experience like be filed away in our filing cabinet here. Yeah, it's like when you have something like that happen and you feel alive and you feel home and you feel revitalized, like you've taken a bath and the most purifying of showers or of waterfalls, what have you.
Yeah.
You can't just, you can, and many do just let it fall into the background. But for me, I was committed because I had been searching for it my whole life. That question of what's more, there's more. And so I made the decision when I got back. I said, hey, I'm moving to Ireland.
You did?
I didn't actually move to Ireland, but I said that I was going to move to Ireland.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. That's what everyone around me said. They said, oh, wow. Are you sure it's not just because you were on vacation and vacation is always fun? And so I realized that the question behind the question for me, or the statement behind the statement, was, I have been touched by something really magical, and I am committing to it. That's what I was committing to when I said I was moving to Ireland. I happened to meet Jordan, my now husband, 5 days after I got back from that trip. Yeah. So that was a beautiful thing that happened for me, that like, and when I met him, we started dating, and then I was like, you have to know, I'm moving to Ireland. So, and he eventually came around and said, you know what, I've thought about it, and it doesn't matter if you're committed to moving to Ireland. I want to explore this and see where it goes.
Wow.
So ultimately, I ended up realizing that I didn't have to stay attached to the outcome of moving to Ireland. I had made that commitment as a stake in the ground of, this is my life changing. So I did something crazy. I did something that people would call crazy, and still it has people with their mouths ajar every time I say it. I went to McMaster Carr, which is the place that I worked, and they're a great company to work for. I am not slandering them in the slightest here, but I went there and I said, hey guys, here is my 11-month notice. I will be leaving in 11 months to the date. And I essentially ended up being like that story spread so fast, because who gives an 11-month notice?
Yeah.
But for me, the reason I gave was I'm kind of trying to help the company so they don't spend resources on me and what have you. They can help to develop people who are planning on staying, but also B, I needed to have that stake in the ground. And and what I was going to do next, I didn't know when I gave that 11-month notice. But toward the end of my 11 months, I started getting a little bit stressed out about it. And I didn't realize, my body was telling me I was a little nervous what was happening. So I had like irritable bowel syndrome really come up and tell me, what, something crazy is going on, lady. You need to figure this stuff out. So I actually joined a 4-week group coaching program from who was one of my greatest friends. And I learned that there was so many more layers to this experience of life than I had really consciously recognized. And that was part of my healing journey at the time from irritable bowel syndrome, funny enough, which is why I also got my nutritional therapy practitioner certification, because those two together kind of helped me to heal my belly, my guts, and my psyche, my being. So then I just decided to do both myself and be able to offer the same to others.
Okay. Wow. Like, I'm here making notes. I'm here making a slew of notes. And there's a reason for this. Because the more that you spoke is the more that I kept hearing, stay flexible, stay open, stay flexible, stay open, stay flexible, stay open, and always be aware of what the next step is going to be. So the next step appears. You didn't know what was going to happen at the end of the 11 months. You didn't know what was going to happen in Ireland, but each opportunity, in fact, they didn't present as opportunities. Each time you made the move to that next place, the opportunity appeared. And sometimes it didn't even seem like an opportunity. And then you walked through the door. This is phenomenal. This is phenomenal. This adaptability, this flexibility, staying open and listening to what the next step is.
And it's not always easy. I love how you're saying that, because it makes it sound like I'm this total like rock star warrior goddess person, which is great. I love to feel that way. So thank you. And I think we all are deep down. But yeah, it's not always easy, because we have these stories that we tend to attach ourselves to. The story that potentially, one for me that existed for so long was, oh, I can't do this because that's for the people who are meant to do meant to be in the limelight, or meant to have the biggest impact, meant to be like wildly wealthy, whatever it was at any stage in my life. I always thought that I was in the group that was not supposed to do the big thing. So that for me, in putting myself in a place where I would be open to the opportunities that would bring me to my greatest and most joyful experience of this human life. Yeah, I had to set aside those stories.
Okay, so one of the things I appreciate so much about talking to you, you will just be talking and you'll say things like the greatest and most important aspects of the human experience. I'm like, who talks like that? Only Christine. Only Christine people. Only Christine. See, here's something you said earlier too. Layers of experience of life. you seem as if you have taken the layers of the experience of your life, put it together, and turned it into literally something that you can now coach people on, right? This is the essence of your business, and your message. How do you consolidate these layers? Like, how do you put them all together?
Yeah, it's with a lot of curiosity, to be honest. And it's with this great awareness. It's so I have a this little notebook right now. I've got, it's like everything from a thought when I come right out of the shower to first thing when I wake up to what I call shadow writing. It's like being willing to be with yourself in all of the moments and to learn from yourself from all of the different vantage points. And I find that just by writing it down, just by reflecting, sometimes it's verbally. So that's another thing Jordan and I do together often, is just verbalize. What are we thinking? What are we feeling? How does this connect to our goals individually, as a couple, as a broader human collective?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it's very much about having the awareness of them and often putting them on paper or verbalizing them. For me, that helps me to kind of retroactively learn from myself. So it's like you have this multi-dimensional being, because we aren't our past and we aren't our
We're
future.
not. We're
We're
not.
not.
In fact, Christine, if we were to do this, and this is one of the things I love about the way you and I talk, right? Because we generally talk in multidimensional ways, but we are not our thoughts either. Because many of our thoughts are connected to an identity that actually isn't even who we were. It's either the story we've told ourselves, the story that we've been told. And if we truly want to change our lives, we have to change our stories. So I love this thing about being curious, staying curious, because it is the curiosity about these things that then turns us into the inquirer about who we are, helps us to find the truth, and then make the next step. I love it.
Absolutely. Yes, that's exactly right. And that's the thing though, is that so many of us have this wall, this block between where we are right now and where we can be in each next present moment, because we are unwilling to look at the labels we place on ourselves. We become so defined by them and so intertwined with those definitions that we feel as though we might literally die if we were to unravel that tying. I mean, it really feels that way. It can feel terrifying. I remember the last time I felt like my ego was dying. I was going to a breath medicine ceremony and I didn't want to go. I was getting nauseous. I was like, it's because my ego knew that a part of it was going to fall away, that a part of my story was going to be set to the side throughout this ceremony and this breath work. And that's exactly what happened. And I understood after it. I was like, oh, sweet ego, I get it. Like, we just need to work together so that we can experience things like this breath medicine ceremony and like being like in this
Work with me. Work with me, ego.
Yeah, you totally can do that. The thing is, we just developed such a toxic relationship with it, where we